So we just got the patch notes for Season 2 of Marvel Rivals. Let's drill through it and talk about what I think. Starting off with Captain America. Captain America is getting some survivability changes. His maximum HP is dropping from 675 down to 650. And then the amount of HP of his shield block is getting a nerf as well, dropping from the 400 down to 350. That drop of 50 health off every time he raises his shield, plus the drop of 25 maximum health, is going to make it a lot easier for targets to be able to keep down Cap. So he's not going to be as much of a threat trying to get around the battlefield and deal with your backline. This is a decent change. Cap is in a really strong spot right now with effective teams, and I think dropping a little bit of his survivability is going to allow them to have a little bit more control over other things he's going to be able to do. He's getting a secondary nerf where his team up here with Thor is going away, so he's no longer going to be able to have that electric shield toss attack, and instead he's going to be gaining a team up with Bucky. Now that team up with Bucky is going to make Captain America an anchor character, which is going to give him that seasonal boost. Going to have a 100 increase to his maximum HP and 5% increased damage output just for being that team up based character. So those reductions in his survivability from the base notes is going to get changed a bit with that increase of 100 base health from the team up, and then 5% damage boost means he is going to be a little bit more threatening. Next up is Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange is having reductions to his damage output. Each of his daggers in his basic attack is going to go from dealing 18 damage per dagger to dealing 16. That is a pretty decent chunk down of his damage, and he's going to be a lot less of a threat taking out targets with his basic attack. The other change is that his E effect from Maelstrom is having a reduction in its damage conversion from 1.3 points down to 1.2 points per charge. This is going to mean that he has less potential to be able to one-shot targets with that explosion from his cloak, and it's going to make it a lot harder for him to do that effective ultimate into fully charged cloak explosion and wiping out your enemy team. The second change here is that he's also no longer going to have his team up with the Hulk. We're no longer going to be able to get the green cape and the increased charge from that, and Doctor Strangers are going to have to deal with more often having the heal block from holding onto your cloak cooldown. Is going to gain a team up where he's going to power up the Scarlet Witch, but again, he doesn't gain that benefit, she does, so he's not going to feel as much threat from having the bonuses that he currently has. Now, being that anchor for that team up, that means Doctor Strange is now going to be getting that seasonal boost of 100 bonus HP, boosting him up to 700 base HP, making him quite a bit more survivable. Increased survivability for reduced damage this season for Doctor Strange. Talking about the Hulk here, Hulk is getting some mobility improvements. So right now Hulk's in a little bit of a weak state, but after this change, he's going to have a increase in his base movement speed here. So he's going to, instead of moving 600, he's going to move at 650. That's not a massive change, but it is going to make quite a bit of a difference. The faster your tank can move around the battlefield, the easier it is for them to make space and to cause the threat that they need to cause. And that boost of about 10% of his movement speed is going to be notable. In addition to that, the cooldown of his shield is dropping from 12 seconds down to 10. So he's going to be able to give more of his shields out and get more ultimate charge from having more of those shields available. Finally, he's getting a change to his incredible leap. The minimum charge time is going to be reduced. Currently, it's 0.7 seconds before you can do a leap, and they're going to reduce that to 0.5. That is a very, very minor change, but is going to result in more leaps from those pro Hulks, and they're going to be able to get around the battlefield a lot more effectively because they're getting more leaps per second. All three of these changes are going to be pretty good for the Hulk, moving around the battlefield more, having more bubbles, and just being more impactful. This should buff him up from the kind of B tank that he is right now, back to being an A tank like he was in the first season. Magneto. Magneto is only getting one change, and that is his Meteor M is not going to charge as quickly. Instead of a 3100 charge, it's now going to be 3400. So he's going to get less meatballs to toss out into the enemy team, and he's going to be less oppressive to the healers when they're trying to use their healer ultimates. The current situation is that Magneto can Meteor M pretty much every time one of your healers has their ultimate, and that makes it so that the ults are less reliable, and Magneto is always going to be able to put a big threat onto those healing targets. With this change, it's going to be harder for him to make sure he has a Meteor available when the healer ultimate goes off. I don't believe that less meteors is going to make it so that Magneto moves in his current ranking as the number 2 tank. He's still going to retain that spot, as there are no changes to Groot. Groot will still be the number 1 tank, I think. This will just be a change that makes it so he's less oppressive, but still a really strong tank option. Magneto's team up with Scarlet Witch will be gone. He's no longer going to get his Phantom Sword, and he's not going to be able to shoot out that increased damage sword, but he gets a new team up with Emma Frost, and we're going to have to see how that ability works. It's going to give him some kind of ability to clone himself and create a mental projection of himself. We're not 100% sure the details on all that, but we'll check that out in the Emma Frost video when that comes out. Peni Parker. Peni Parker is getting a massive change, but I don't know if I agree with it. All right, so what's happening is that her clusters here are now going to be able to critically hit. Currently, her cluster attacks cannot critically hit, and they deal the same amount of damage no matter where you hit. With the crits, it's going to be double damage onto those headshots. That's going to be a massive increase in her damage output, and it's going to be really easy for her to land headshots. Like, it's because of her reliable rate of fire, she hits the head quite often, and this is going to double that damage output. Right now, Peni is mostly played as like a flanker that goes up on a side angle and shoots down at targets while maintaining control over an area that enemies can't come and interact with. She's played as kind of like a tertiary tank. And with this change, she's going to be dealing so much more damage with this that she's going to be way more oppressive. The second change is that she's getting a big boost to her basic HP, from 650 up to 750, which then means within Horror Mines, she should be up to 900 health. So 900 within the full shield range of her mines, that's a lot of health to be able to get through, and her dealing that double damage with those headshots, she's going to be pretty reliable as that side flank style tank that she's currently played at. The Thing is rightfully seeing a small nerf. The only nerf we're getting to the Thing is that when he uses his jump to jump to an ally, the amount of damage reduction that he and his ally receive is getting reduced from 30% down to 25%. That is a decent chunk off of that ability, and it's going to make him less safe of an option, but again, it's not going to be killer here. A little bit less safety, so you have to play a little bit more defensively and can't quite be as risky as you currently are, is probably a good change for how strong the Thing is right now. Thor. With Thor losing his current team up, he's going to lose that team up bonus, and he's going to lose 100 health. So he'll go down to 525. This they're going to buff and give him a 600 base health. So he's actually losing about 25 health from his current state. They're then going to boost his movement speed with that 10% movement speed buff, and he's going to be able to move at 650, getting around the battlefield a little bit quicker. I don't think that that increased movement speed is enough to make up for the 25 HP nerf, and no other changes to Thor is pretty surprising to me. I think he's in a little bit of a weak state compared to the other tanks, and this is just going to kind of keep him as one of the worst tank options to pick. Black Widow is getting a very minor change that's probably going to be pretty good for her, but again, not the kind of change that I think is really going to fix all of the issues the players have with Black Widow. What's happening here is right now, when she does her kick or her ultimate, there's a delay before she can shoot. So if you do your kick and then follow up, you can't immediately shoot until the animation is finished. They're seeming to be changing that and making it so that as soon as you've begun that second kick, you're able to shoot off your rifle and be able to get that quick shot off a target. A double kick and then shot that hits as a headshot should be a kill onto a target. So you should be able to kick, and then shoot while they're in the air there, where right now you cannot fire while they're in the air. The second change is that there's going to be a change when she shoots her ultimate. There's a delay right now where when you fire the ultimate, you can't shoot the gun for a very short delay, and they're removing that. So as soon as you hit with the ultimate, you can unleash a shot, and whoever you hit with your ultimate, you should be killing with that secondary shot, assuming you hit one of the squishy targets. A little bit more kill threat to Black Widow and smoother interactions with her kick is going to be good, but not enough to fix Black Widow or put her into a higher ranking in any of the tier lists. Now, a lot of people are not going to be happy with this. Hawkeye is receiving some buffs. All right, so reduce the slow effect while charging the bow from 30% to 20%. Right now, he's got some decent movement, and when you begin drawing the bow, you're slowed. They're reducing the amount you're slowed by a decent chunk, from 30% to 20%. So it's going to be a little bit quicker as he is trying to move back and forth, trying to get his bow shots off. It's going to be harder for you to land your hits against him. Second change is that his E is going to get a double buff When he shoots off his hypersonic arrow, it's going to deal 5 more damage on both of the procs, so that's a 10% increase total to its damage output. Finally, a change to his ultimate. His ultimate is going to charge a little bit faster, from 3700 down to 3100. So definitely going to get more times where you're able to pop that ultimate and get your arrow shots off. And they're going to increase the speed at which he pulls back his arrow while performing his ultimate, making it easier for him to get arrow shots off, meaning more charged up arrows per attack, increasing his damage output quite a bit during his ultimate. These changes are going to make his ultimate a lot more powerful, and he's going to be more impactful when his ultimate is active. That combined with his increased movement speed while he's drawing his bow is going to just give him some safety and increased threat that I think is going to be really hard to deal with. And I expect him to become another big threat that players are just going to have to take off the board if they're not able to handle it. Hela's getting some minor modifications that are supposed to be kind of keeping her even. First up, an increase of 3 seconds on her crow form. She's not going to be able to reposition herself nearly as often, and that's going to drop her safety down quite a bit in those pro levels. Players are often using that cooldown on time, they're going to not be able to reposition nearly as often. Second up, the explosion damage from her right click when that lands on a target and then detonates. That detonation explosion is seeing a small increase in damage output, so it's going to be more reliable when you hit the target or not. The damage from the initial hit and then the explosions, all those explosions are going to hit harder, and it's going to be a more impactful ability to successfully land on the target. And finally, her stun ability is getting a 2-second reduction on cooldown, so you're going to be able to stun targets a little bit more often. So more stuns to keep yourself a little bit safer, but less repositioning power is really what they're going for here with Hela. And then they're increasing the power output of her right click to make it more of an enticing option. Right now, usually they're just spamming left click, as the right click just isn't as impactful as it needs to be to keep up with the power output of just those sheer headshots with the hit scan. I don't think there's power increase there because you're sacrificing using your basic attack, which you'd be using right now, to activate those extra abilities. So it's just trading off some power and making it so you're more likely to use your powers. Human Torch is receiving some minor changes to his abilities. First up, the rate of fire of his basic attack is going to be a slight increase from 0.6 seconds to 0.5 seconds between each burst. So you're going to be able to get off his combo a little bit quicker on targets, and that should be a little bit more satisfying to throw those. Second up is when he does his meteor. If you shoot out these things and you do your meteor and slam down on the target, that increased cooldown is going to go from 12 seconds to 15. You're not going to be slamming down on the enemies nearly as often, but they're also going to give you a bonus 75 HP when you do perform it. So after you slam down on a target, you're going to get that boost of HP, and you're going to be able to more likely make it out of there because you have way increased survivability, going up to that 325 HP to be able to quickly blaze out of there. Increased survivability and increased rate of fire are both good things here, but again, I don't think this is going to be enough to really see Johnny played more often at any ranks. It's just going to feel a little bit more rewarding for players that do choose to play Johnny to play him. Iron Man. Iron Man is getting a slight reduction in his hitbox. It's going to be harder for you to land onto him. That's pretty good for him. He's really easy to hit out of the skies right now, and that's one of the things that makes him a little bit weaker than he could be. The other adjustment is when he is up close and personal and begins activating his armor overdrive. During that animation, he's going to gain a boost of bonus health. 100 bonus health will go out to him when he begins activating that to allow him to get into that form even when somebody's on him. So he's currently engaged in combat and he needs to pop that armor overdrive to be able to fight the target more effectively. He gets a boost of bonus health to help him transition into the overdrive form, instead of that just leaving him vulnerable. Reducing some of the risks to playing Iron Man is all this is really doing, and I don't think, again, this is going to be a major change we're going to see him flex in any tier lists, but it is a good change for handling with the divers. Iron Fist getting a small nerf to survivability and an increase to his damage output. So when you meditate, your maximum health boost is going to go down to 400 from 450, so you're not going to be as survivable when you are in that boosted form. But the fall off is going to happen a little bit more gradually at 15 per second instead of 25, so you're going to maintain that shield a little bit longer. You don't often get the full benefit of 150 due to that fall off, so that's pretty good. In addition to that, his tank killing potential is getting a buff. When he activates his secondary set of strikes, he's going to have a reduction in the base damage from 10 down to 9 per strike, but a buff up of the percent HP damage from 1.7% of max HP to 2.1%. That is a pretty significant percentile increase, and he's going to be able to kill tanks quite a bit faster when he's in this form. But it shouldn't have a significant change in the amount of damage he deals to lower health targets. He should kill them in about the same amount of time. Slightly faster. It is going to be slightly faster with this change. The 1.7 to 2.1% is going to be more significant than the 1 damage per punch that he's currently getting. So he's going to be faster at killing targets, and he's going to be taking out more percentage of their HP per strike, but he's not going to be able to be as safe when he puts up that meditation shield. Finally, his shift kick is getting a cooldown reduction, so instead of 12 seconds, that's going down to 10, so he's going to be able to do that double kick more often and be able to use it to get to safety more often as well after he's done his successful dive. So you're going to see a little bit more threat coming from the Iron Fist here, killing targets faster and being a little bit more survivable. Some pretty big changes here to Mr. Fantastic. They're trying to get him a little bit more sense of style in the game, and I think this is some good adjustments. First up, they're buffing his base health from 350 to 375. Just adding some more survivability there is going to be really good because he's easy to take out if he's not enlarged. Second up, the increase in damage from Stretch Punch. So Stretch Punch here is going to receive a increase of 5 damage in both his basic form and in his extreme size form. So regardless of size, he's going to be dealing more damage per punch and just adding more threat. This is definitely what he needs, as Mr. Fantastic's threat is really low, and adjustment here is pretty significant at almost 10% increased damage. Number 2, when he uses his flexible elongation E ability and pulls himself to an enemy, he's now going to slow them by 35%. That is going to be really big, a huge amount of additional CC to targets, so he grabs them, knocks them back, and applies a slow to them, allowing him to combo onto them. We're not sure how long this is going to last, it doesn't say, but it is going to be a nice ability for him to adjust targets a little bit more often and improve his anti-dive capabilities, which is actually one of his strongest states. If he jumps to an enemy that is dived onto a friend, he knocks them back and slows them. Then he can go into his big form and slap them down. They're also changing the cooldown time of this ability. Instead of the current 10 seconds per elastic jump, it's now going to be back down to 8, which it originally was. And that was a big ask from the community. Being able to do more pulls is really valuable as this character and makes you feel the character fantasy that we just weren't getting when they increased it. Another big change here is that you're not going to be able to go big as often by just spamming abilities. They are reducing the amount of passive that he gains from his abilities. Currently it is 30, that's going down to 20. So he's going to take more abilities to get fully elasticized. But they're also increasing the amount of he gains from each punch, where right now when you punch you gain 5, that's going up to 8. So more gain from actually spamming his basic attacks and having to fight targets. He's going to gain his elasticity a lot faster doing that, but less from just spamming out your abilities. And you're not going to be able to grow to your maximum size nearly as quickly. The final change is one I didn't know why they didn't do this originally, and that is when he activates his ultimate, he's going to gain that full boost of bonus health that he gains when he goes into his maximum size. So when you begin ulting, you're going to get that huge boost of HP, and you're going to be bouncing around with maximum HP rather than with the small base 350. Doing this with 800 health is way safer, and it's going to be way harder for targets to be able to kill you while you're bouncing. All these are pretty good changes for Mr. Fantastic. This should make him have a lot more impact on games, and you should see him dealing some significant increase in damage output. He's going to be more of a threat on the field, but he's not going to be big nearly as often, and you are going to have a little bit more time to be able to deal with him. For the best Mr. Fantastics, you're almost constantly dealing with that boost of 800 HP, and it was really frustrating to take him down. Moon Knight. People aren't going to be happy about this. Moon Knight is seeing some buffs. So first off, when he is throwing his daggers, these things are going to move faster. They are going from 120 meters per second to 150 meters per second. That's a lot faster. It's going to be way easier for Moon Knight to make sure that he hits the target that he's aiming at, where right now it is very often that when he's trying to aim at moving targets, they're able to move out of his damage output. Second up, survivability increase. When he uses his Moonblade, right click, each target that it hits is going to give him some bonus health. 25 bonus health per target, up to 100 bonus health. Once he stops getting bonus health, then it begins depleting downwards, so it's going to be a boost of bonus health that he can gain, especially when somebody gets on top of him or he takes a chunk of damage. He's able to toss that out and gain some survivability, assuming he's able to hit a target. Not huge survivability, but this is pretty decent and adds some defensive to his kit instead of just escape mechanism. Speaking of escape mechanisms, his hook speed is going up. So right now, when you hook, there's quite a delay before the bounce. That is currently a delay of 0.4 seconds, and it's going down to 0.15. So shooting that hook out, you're going to be launching in the air way faster, and it's going to be harder to lock this character down. And then the moon is getting a change. We are getting an increase in duration of his ultimate, so his ultimate will last longer. He is getting faster talons. The talons that fall out of the sky are going to fall at a faster rate, so it's going to be easier for you to get hit by each of the talons, but they're adding a damage fall off. If you are further than 1.5 meters from the talon, you begin taking damage reduction of 70% maximum at 5 meters away. So right now, as you are close to the talons, you are taking a lot more damage, and now as you move away from them, getting up to 5 meters away from where the talon strikes, you're going to have reduced damage taken, so you are going to have to get hit directly by talons for that insta-kill to happen, and his ultimate is not going to be as oppressive as it is right now. I think that's a good change. I think his ultimate right now is really frustrating with how it can kill you so quickly, and it feels like there's so little counterplay to it. This is going to make it so that as you move out of it, you're less likely to be struck down immediately, but there's more talons and more danger. Luna Snow is no longer going to give a team up to Namor. Namor is no longer going to be a part of the icy combo, and he's no longer going to be able to get that icy squid. But he is still going to get a change. Instead of getting an icy squid that he can toss out with Luna, he's instead going to get a gamma squid that he's going to be able to toss out with the Hulk. We don't know the details of the difference between the icy squid and the gamma squid, but what we do know is that Luna Snow fits into pretty much any team. She's one of the strongest healers, and she fits a lot of compositions. Hulk does not fit into every team, and a lot of Vanguard players do not play Hulk. So we're going to probably see this team up come up less often because players are less familiar with Hulk as a character, and he's not going to fit into every situation. So if you want to be playing Namor and be able to use his anti-dive potential with that extra squid, you're going to have to deal with a Hulk on your team, which is going to change up your own team's tanking perspective. And I think that is going to be a pretty significant change to Namor that a lot of people aren't going to see nearly as often. Psylocke here is losing her team up that she gets with magic, and she's no longer going to be able to do her portal hop. Instead, she's getting a new team up with Emma Frost that's giving her some kind of projected version of herself, but we're going to have to check that out in the Emma Frost video. Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch is getting reduction to her survivability for increased damage against duelists. Right now, she's a % HP target, killer, and doesn't kill duelists very fast. That's pretty good. Oh, so they are completely removing the % HP from the channel. Right now, it's like less than 1%, and they're completely removing that, and then they're buffing it. Instead of 60 per second, it's going up to 80. That is a big boost. 60 per second to 80 per second means she's going to be killing targets way faster with that channel.
That did the trick.
Second up, her right click is getting a buff increase of 5 damage on both the initial hit and on the spell field explosion. So both of these are getting a buff to their damage output, and shooting out those bursts is going to deal more damage to targets. To make up for that, when she goes invisible, the duration is shorter and the cooldown is longer. So 10-second cooldown from being able to use these. She's going to be able to reposition and go to safety less often, and she's not going to be able to be invincible as long. Both good changes. She's a little bit too survivable right now. A really good Scarlet Witch you're almost never going to lock down with the double charges and ability to go intangible and move about. This is a decent change, but it's going to be tough on those players because they're so used to the current durations. The increased damage is going to be worth it for them. Finally, a change to her ultimate. As she begins casting this, right now when you begin the ultimate, you're immediately slowed and you slowly float towards your targets and explode. What they're changing is you're instead going to get a gradual reduction in movement speed. You're going to start off at full movement speed, and after 1.5 seconds, you're going to begin slowing down with a linear increase down to 35%. So you're going to be a little bit quicker on the start, being able to move towards your targets faster, but you're going to slow down more and slow down, and then finally explode at the last second. That's pretty good. That means that it's going to be harder for targets to be able to switch to and take you down because you're going to be moving through the air quite a bit quicker at the start, and it's going to be in that last couple of moments before the explosion of your erasure that are going to be able to take you out because you're at your maximum slowed effect. All in all, good changes to Scarlet Witch. I think that is going to really up her threat, and she's going to become one of those backline threats here. That change to her damage output, she's going to be melting backlines pretty effectively, but you are going to be able to lock her down a lot easier, so reacting to her appropriately is going to punish her. Star-Lord players are not going to be happy with this. Okay, Blaster Barrage. That is his E ability. E ability is getting a damage reduction from 80 per second to 75 per second. So he's not going to be killing targets nearly as quickly while he's doing this. And they're adding a damage fall off. So you have to be nice and close up at the 4 meters away from the target to get the full damage output of that Blaster Barrage. You have to be here. You can't be all the way out here and still getting the full benefit of the effect. So reduce safety for him. He has to be closer to take out targets with that Barrage attack. You can't kill them from that far away. For Storm, as we said, Thor's team up is gone. So we're no longer going to be able to get the chain lightning effect that she gets from benefiting from Thor on her team. She's still going to have her team up with Johnny Storm and the Human Torch Fire Tornado team up, which is the stronger of the two, but do note you're no longer going to be able to get access to that chain lightning ability. Winter Soldier. Winter Soldier is getting one big nerf in the fact that his team up with Rocket is gone. He can no longer perform that team up ability, and you're no longer going to get the infinite ammo. That reduces his threat against tanks significantly. He's getting a new team up with Captain America that's going to allow him to jump to allies or jump to Captain America and do some kind of clash effect. It looks like that does a slow to targets that are nearby whoever he jumps to. We'll have to see how that all plays out as it gets active. His bionic hook is going up in cooldown. So right now, whenever he hooks, that is an 8-second cooldown before he can hook again. That's going all the way up to 12. 12 seconds on that hook is going to be pretty huge. It already feels when you're playing Bucky like it's a really long cooldown, and increasing the cooldown by 50% is going to result in way less hooks and way less threat onto Vanguards from Bucky here. Then his ultimate is receiving a 2-part change. First up, instead of 100 damage, it's only going to deal 80 damage. And then the culling percentage, instead of 20%, it's going to be 15%. So it's going to be harder for him to get his chains off on targets. He's going to deal less damage with that initial impact, and he's going to have to get them lower HP before he successfully kills them with that cull attack. This 2 for hit to his ultimate is pretty big, and I think that is going to drop his usefulness down quite a bit. Wolverine is getting some minor changes to how his passive stacks up. If you're attacking with your basic attack, you are going to be gaining your passive a lot faster than you are right now. Where if you are attacking after your leap and you're doing the savage attack, you're going to gain it a little bit slower than right now. So the two should be a little bit more in line, but right now you gain it really slowly on the basic attack and way too fast on the dashed version. You're going to gain it at a much more reliable rate regardless, and so it should give you a little bit more reward for charging it up with your basic and then using your dash afterwards. Next up, his abilities. So both his shift dash and his right click are getting a reduction in how much rage they give, and it's going to be less easy to build up your rage by using your abilities, but he's getting an increase in how often he gains rage from taking damage. So instead of 3 per damage instance, it's going to be 5. Taking damage as well as landing your basic attacks is just going to charge your ult a little bit quicker than it is right now. So a nerf and a change, we should see the same amount of total slashes from Wolverine from that. Second change is to his ultimate ability. When he knocks up targets and then slams it down on the ground, the amount of time they're knocked over there at the very end is going from 1 second to 0.75 seconds. Not too impactful, but if an enemy has a defensive ability, after you slam them down, it's much more likely they're going to get that off before you can kill them with that 0.25 second time where they're going to be able to start that defensive. None of these changes are going to change Wolverine from the current threat that he's at. He's still going to be the same level of threatening, and I think we're still going to see him used quite a bit. Adam Warlock is getting both a nerf and a buff. First up, his shift ability, Soul Bond, is now going to get a much longer cooldown, increasing to 40 seconds from the current 30 seconds. So he's not going to be able to bind his allies together nearly as often, severely reducing how safe he makes his team. To make up for that, they're changing his ultimate. His ultimate is now going to revive people with 30% of their max health instead of 100 health. This is going to revive duelists at lower health, and is going to revive tanks at much higher health. So tanks are going to be coming out with that vulnerable 100 HP. They're going to be coming out with a much larger percentage of their health pool and easier for him to top them off. But the 250 HP duelists are going to be coming back with a smaller total health pool. I think this is a really good change. I think a quick, E after that is going to be able to heal those duelists still. It's still going to get them pretty much 100% HP, but the tanks coming back with quite a bit more health is really good. And the counterplay added to Winter Soldier coming in and just slamming down on the entire enemy team. Right now, when he activates Karmic Revival, if Winter Soldier ults with that 100 damage ult, it kills everyone instantly. This is going to stop that from happening. Cloak Dagger. This change doesn't sound significant, but it is. What happens here is when you begin your ultimate and you dash, you leave your 4 trails behind, and right now, as you leave each trail, it begins calculating its duration immediately. The change that's going to happen is that the duration is going to begin calculating after the last one finishes. The full field will last the 6 seconds of the final dash instead of beginning the calculation immediately. This leaves the full field up quite a bit longer, and it's going to be a pretty big buff to Cloak and Dagger's healing output with their ultimate. Invisible Woman gets a very small change, and that is this little shield that she puts up. Instead of 300 health, it's going to have 250 to start. So less total health on that shield means that it's easier to break it. It doesn't give nearly as much safety as it currently does, and that's a good change, bringing her down just a tiny bit, not enough to really majorly impact her potential, but just reducing the total safety that she produces. Loki, also a very minor change. That is his shift abilities cooldown is increasing from 25 seconds to 30 seconds. This ability is extremely powerful in the top ends of play. He's able to counteract so many abilities, and increasing that cooldown that he needs to be able to get that off is going to make him way less safe of a pick. He's not going to be countering nearly as many plays with those, and he has to think a lot more often about, is this the right situation to drop my rune, or do I need to hold it for a little bit? And adding a little bit more play to that character is needed. Mantis, losing some safety here, dropping from 275 down to 250. But she is getting a change to both of her buffs. When she puts out her healing buff or her increased damage buff, it starts at 8 seconds. And if you reapply, it's going to double the duration now. So it's going to be able to buff up the duration to 16 seconds total on the target, where right now when you recast a heal on a target, it doesn't extend the duration, it just puts a new 8-second duration heal on the target. Now that's going to become a 16-second duration heal when you put 2 heals onto a target. That's pretty good for strategy, and an increase in her ability to spam onto a target. If you know you're about to have a diver go deep into the enemy lines, right now if you buff a diver, that 8 seconds, most of those 8 seconds are used for that diver getting in position and then getting into the enemy team. Now you're going to be able to toss out 2 quick buffs on them, 16-second duration of that buff. They're going to be able to get in there and do their damage a lot more reliably. This is a really good buff to Mantis and adds quite a bit of increased strategy to her that I like a lot. 2 quick heals on a target. You're now able to wait on that target for 16 seconds before you have to heal them again, and are able to change around who you're interacting with a lot more often. I like this a lot. Final bit of changes here are going to be to Rocket Raccoon. So first up, his healing orbs. Each healing orb is going to heal for less. Instead of 70 per health per second, it's going down to 50 health per second. Way less reliable healing. Like right now, look at just how much healing potential one of those orbs gives. Way higher than Mantis does, right? Like a single orb out heals the damage output of these, and Mantis' heal barely does that. This easily does it. They're dropping that total health per second down, but they're adding a quick burst healing when the orb initially hits you. There's going to be a quick 50 health heal, and then it's going to begin that healing per second. So really, it ends up, I think, being the same amount of total health maybe. Maybe slightly lower, but there's going to be a quick burst first, and then the constant ticks of 50. So the first tick will basically be 100, and then a constant 50 ticks instead of constant 70 ticks. Projectile speed reduction increased from 4.5 meters per second to 7 meters per second. So when it gets to a target, it's not going to slow down as much, I think is what I'm reading here. My understanding is that right now it slows down to 4.5 meters. It's going to slow to 7 meters, not slowing down on a target nearly as often and being able to move through multiple targets quite a bit easier. Survivability is going down. His dash right now, he has 2 dashes that have a 10-meter distance at 6-second cooldown. They're nerfing that cooldown up to 10 seconds, so he's going to get less dashes, and he's not going to go as far, going only 8 meters instead of 10. Quite a drop in his survivability. I think that's needed. He's too easy for him to escape and get away unscathed. It's really often you have a 0-death Rocket, and this is going to reduce how often Rocket gets away. And the final change, I think, is exactly what everybody's been asking for. It is a change to his ultimate. When he pumps up his ultimate, it is no longer going to give 40% increased damage. It's now going to give 25% increase. A huge drop-off of that increased damage is traded off by now giving 100 bonus health per second, capping at 150. So while you're receiving that buff, you're going to be constantly gaining 100 bonus health, and as you're taking that damage, you're going to be gaining it back, a decent chunk of bonus health gained. Not nearly as powerful as the other healing ultimates, of course, that are dealing like 500 healing a second. This is only going to be healing 100, but it is a boost of bonus health, an increase to your maximum health, and much more reliable healing cooldown that he got. To make up for this, they're increasing the energy cost of this from 3,700 up to 4,000. It's going to be harder for him to get this ultimate off, but the ultimate gives the team a lot more safety. I think the 25% increased damage from the 40% is still enough of an increase that the one-shot mechanics mostly are still going to be going on. Thor is still going to decimate teams. Venom's still going to decimate teams with that buff, but it gives him more of a defensive ultimate, and he's not going to be thought of as the complete waste of a healer ultimate that a lot of players feel like he is. Huge changes to Rocket. I think they're going to be pretty impactful. Less safety, a change to how he heals, and then a more useful ultimate. All right, so down the board, those are the changes coming in Season 2. I think it's some good adjustments, a couple of tweaks, and trying to pull characters closer to the middle, bring everybody into a more fun and playable state, getting rid of some of the frustrations with some characters, and generally just adjusting power. I don't think there was any huge increases except Peni's damage output. I think the rest of them were mostly just power balances or slight nerfs to reduce really powerful abilities. I really like these patch notes. I think Season 2 is looking pretty sharp. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'm Zesty Fresh, this is Odds Games, and we'll catch you guys next time.